Welcome to the Wisdom That Breathes channel. Across all our platforms, we try to share wisdom which is relevant and accessible to everyone. But on this particular platform, we go deeper into some of the ancient principles found within the scriptures. If you find some of the terminology difficult or inaccessible, then go over to our Keshava Swami YouTube channel where you'll be able to find other content which is perhaps more relatable. Thank you and enjoy the wisdom that breathes. Shri Radha Krishna Sagarika Shri Samadhika He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagapate Goresha Gopika Radha Kanta Namostute Radha Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishwabhanu Sute Pranamami Haripriye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhudaya Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare. Srimad Bhagavatam ki Srila Prabhupada ki Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya 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 Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna. Thank you everyone for coming this morning. Today we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto number 1, chapter number 17, entitled The Punishment and Reward of Kali. And today we're reading from text number 7. Tvam va mrinala dhavala pader nyuna padachara Visharupena kim kaschit Devona parikhedhayan Amva mrinala dhavala Pader nyuna padacharan Visharupena kim kaschit Devona parikhedhayan Tvam va mrinala dhavala Pader nyuna padacharan Visharupena kim kaschit Devona parikhedhayan Visharupena kim kaschit Devona parikhedhayan Mrinala dhavala Parikhedayan. Mrinala dhavala Tvam, you, va, either. Mrinala Dhavala, as white as a lotus. Pade, of 3 legs. Nyuna, being deprived. Pada, on 1 leg. Charan, moving. Vrisha, bull. Rupena, in the form of. Kim, whether. Kaschit, someone. Deva, demigod. Naha, us. Parikedayan, causing grief. Translation in purport by His Divine Grace, Sri Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. Translation. Then he, Maharaj Parikshit, asked the bull, "Oh, who are you? Are you a bull as white as a white lotus, or are you a demigod? You have lost 3 of your legs and are moving on only 1. Are you some demigod causing us grief in the form of a bull?" Purport. At least up to the time of Maharaj Parikshit, no one could imagine the wretched conditions of the cow and the bull. Maharaj Parikshit therefore was astonished to see such a horrible scene. He inquired whether the bull was not a demigod, assuming such a wretched condition to indicate the future of the cow and the bull. Srila Prabhupada Ki. So here we are continuing Kali Yuga Katha. How Kali Yuga comes about, and Parikshit is astonished. In English they say, "I can't believe my eyes." He's seeing something, he can't believe it. Is this really true? Have you been diminished in this way? Has someone really come to attack you? Who would attack the cow, the most lovable of creatures? He can't believe it. He thinks that maybe it's just something, a drama, an act, a demigod coming to show something of maybe in the future, but not now. How can this happen? So Parikshit can't believe his eyes, but yes, indeed, the Lord has left and dark times have come. I was remembering actually, dark times have come. At Studio 108, you have Mohan and Haripriya, who now look after the top. So Mohan, he's always full of good preaching ideas. So about 25 years ago, when it was the turn of the millennium, when it was going to go to the year 2000, some of you may have been around at that time, there was this whole thing in the world that the millennium bug. I don't know if you remember that. But there was the Y2K, right? There was this whole thing that when the clock would go to midnight and it would be like 010100, then everything was going to crash. Like the whole everything, the banking system, all the networks of the world, everything, because the systems couldn't handle it. So there was this whole kind of, you could say, conspiracy theory carrying on from yesterday. So Mo, he had a bright idea. He bought the domain name www.thedarktimes.com. And what he did is he made this whole website which was all the predictions of the Bhagavatam about Kali Yuga. So October, November, December 1999, we were all sitting down in someone's home writing up all these things from the Bhagavatam about Kali Yuga, the dark times. And then what we did is on New Year's Eve, when everyone was out having a party, what we did is we made these posters, and all it said on the poster was, "Dark times are coming." It was a black poster, and it just had the words, "Dark times are coming, www.thedarktimes.com." And what we did is we went in all the university halls in the middle of the night when everyone was out partying, and we plastered it everywhere. So people returned in the morning and they just returned in their places, the universities, the halls, anywhere you could go, and there were just all these posters, "Dark times are coming."
So I think we got quite a few hits on the website, and we shared with people that dark times are coming, Kali Yuga. So anyway, I thought some people probably thought we were a terrorist organization or something like that. But so yes, dark times are coming, and here Parikshit is seeing that 3 legs of the bull are gone. Now this is very interesting because the Bhagavatam actually explains it in different ways. There are 4 legs upon which Dharma is standing. All of you know, right? Satya means truth. Socha means cleanliness. Daya means mercy. And the final one is tapa. Tapa means austerity. So these are the 4 legs on which civilization stands. When there's no austerity, when there's no mercy, when there's no cleanliness and no truthfulness, there's no civilization. They once asked Gandhi, what do you think of Western civilization? He said, I think it would be a good idea. He said, there is no civilization. There's no civilization unless these things are present in the world. And so these are the 4 legs on which any civilization stands. Now, interestingly, in the first canto of the Bhagavatam, the way it's explained is that 1 leg is being diminished in every yuga. But it's interesting, in the 12th canto of the Bhagavatam, the way it's explained is that all 4 legs are simultaneously and gradually being reduced in every yuga. It's explained in slightly different ways. So here, what we're hearing of, we're seeing a bull and 3 legs have gone and 1 is remaining. So in some scriptures it's explained like this, that in every yuga, 1 leg goes. So for example, if you look at the Chaitanya Mangal, then there's a very famous conversation between Murari Gupta and Damodar Pandit. And they're talking about how in every yuga, 1 leg goes. Now, the easy way to remember which leg goes in which yuga is if you know what the yuga dharma is. So the Bhagavatam explains what is the yuga dharma in every yuga. Krite yadhyayato vishnum tretayam yajato mukhe dvapare paricharyayam kalautad harikirtanat. In Krita Yuga or Satya Yuga, what is the method of self-realization? Dhyan, meditation. In Treta Yuga, what is the method? Tretayam yajato mukhe, yagya, to do yagya, sacrifice. Dvapare paricharyayam, in Dvapara, archanam, deity worship. Kalautad harikirtanat, and Kali Yuga, Harinam Sankirtan. Harinam Sankirtan ki. Yeah. Thank God that's the Yuga Dharma. So, if you think about it, at the end of Satya Yuga, the Yuga Dharma has to change from Dhyan. Because 1 quality goes which is required for Dhyan. Which is the quality which is required for Dhyan? Austerity, tapa. Because what does tapa mean? It means 1 has the ability to control the mind and senses. You don't go with the loudest desire, you go with the deepest desire. The most successful people in the world, they know how to listen not to the loudest desire, but they know how to listen to the deepest desire. And therefore, don't give up what you want most for what feels good now. But nowadays, people have no mind and sense control. The mind is so agitated. Therefore, it's said, according to Chaitanya Mangal, that in Satya Yuga, austerity goes. Now, in Treta Yuga, the Yuga Dharma is yagya. So, in order for yagya to happen, what do you require? What quality do you require? Yeah, it's actually said that at the end of Treta Yuga, the quality which goes is mercy. Because what happens at the end of Treta Yuga is that yagyas are done, but yagyas are done ultimately to, even when the animals are sacrificed, they're sacrificed so they get a higher birth. But then what people start doing is they start misusing the yagyas to harm animals. And therefore it said Daya is gone. Therefore the Yuga Dharma has to change. So then in Dwapara Yuga, the quality that the Yuga Dharma is Archanam. But in order to do Archanam, what quality do you require? Socham. You can't turn up like a riffraff on the altar. You have to be clean. But then people don't have that cleanliness. So therefore at the end of Dwapara, the Yuga Dharma changes to Harikirtanat. And it said therefore the only leg remaining in Kali is truthfulness. So that's how you remember. That's one way in which Shastra explains the diminishing of the legs of religion. However, in another part of the Bhagavatam is described in a slightly different way. So in the Bhagavatam there are different Gitas. We have Bhagavad Gita, but in the Bhagavatam there are also different Gitas. Can you name me some of the Gitas in the Bhagavatam? Aila Gita. Aila Gita is like the original Bollywood movie, because it's Pururava who gets attracted by Urvashi, the celestial damsel, and then basically, she does him over, and he gets really attached, and then it's like a whole romantic thing, and then he just develops a deep detachment. Very interesting. Aila Gita, very good. Yes, what other ones? Brahmara Geet, the song of the bee, when Uddhava comes to Vrindavan to give the message to the gopis, then Radharani is speaking to a bee. And so that's another beautiful. Another one? Gopi Geet, yes, when Krishna is meeting with the gopis, but then all of a sudden, boom, Krishna leaves, and the gopis are in madness, and they're wondering, where is Krishna? And then they begin singing this Gopi Geet. Very beautiful. Tava kathamritam tapta jivanam shravana mangalam shrimadatatam bhuvigrananti ye bhuridajana. Very beautiful. So yes, many others. Any other Gitas you can remember? Uddhava Gita, yes. Uddhava Gita is a very famous Gita. It's actually the longest Gita. Shri Radha Landanishwara ki, Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Maharani ki, Gaurnitaya ki. Uddhava Gita is the longest Gita in the Bhagavatam. I think it goes from 7th chapter of the 11th canto to 23rd. Very, very profound. But does anyone know which is the last Gita of the Bhagavatam? You may not know. Movie Gita? Bhumi Gita, yes, very good, excellent. Yes, in the final chapter of the final canto of the Bhagavatam, which is the age of deterioration, the 3rd chapter is known as the Bhumi Gita. And this is the song of Bhumi Devi. Here we're hearing about how the cow and the bull are being attacked. And what happens at the end of the Bhagavatam is that Bhumi, Mother Bhumi, she's crying out, seeing how the leaders are exploiting. So in that Bhumi Gita, the diminishing of the yugas and the legs of religion are described in a different way. In the 20th verse of the 3rd chapter of the 12th canto, this is how it's explained. In Treta Yuga, each leg of religion is gradually reduced by 1/4. See, this is explained differently. By the influence of the 4 pillars of irreligion. And then later on it says, in Dwapara Yuga, the religious qualities of austerity, truth, mercy and charity are reduced to 1/2 by their irreligious counterparts, dissatisfaction, untruth, violence and enmity. So, sometimes what you'll find in Shastra is that something is described in different ways. So here in the 1st canto, 1 leg at a time. 12th canto is saying that it goes gradually, all of them are diminishing. So which one is it? It's interesting that if you look at Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's commentaries on the 1st canto, where it's explained that these 3 legs have gone, he actually explains it according to the 12th canto, that no, actually they're going gradually. So the way one commentator resolves it is he says that because in the 1st canto is being depicted dramatically through a visual aid, therefore is depicted like this, that 3 legs go and it's only 1 leg remaining, because it's done in a dramatic way. It's done for artistic license. He says actually it's the way it actually functions is that it's not that there's no austerity, there's no cleanliness, there's no mercy in Kali Yuga, but it's that all of those are diminished, and of the 4 legs that have been diminished, all of them have been diminished, but truthfulness is still the most prominent. Sometimes people ask, in what sense is Kali Yuga resting on truthfulness? Is it a very truthful world? Do you trust politicians? Do you trust the media? Do you trust shops? Do you trust your mind? Who do you trust? Who's truthful? So sometimes people ask, in what sense is Kali Yuga resting on truthfulness? Anyone want to give an idea? Shastra. Janmadhyasyaton vayad itaratas charteshva bhigya swarat tene brahmaridaya adikavaye muyanti atsuraya tejo varimridam yatha vinimayo yatra trishargo mrisha dhamna sena sada nihastakahakam satyam param dhimahi. Because Bhagavatam is there. Because everything in Kali Yuga is an ocean of untruth. But the amazing thing is, Purar Narko Dhuno Dita, the Purana is there. Therefore, even though there's so much untruth in Kali Yuga, we can say it's still resting on truthfulness because the absolute truth is there. And therefore, anyone who accesses spiritual literature, they access the real truth, the absolute truth. And therefore, to distribute knowledge is the most important thing in Kali Yuga, because this is all that it's resting on. The fact that Kali Yuga is still functioning is because they're still resting on truth, and that truth is available in the Shastra. And therefore, the Acharyas wanted the Shastra to be distributed everywhere. Like one time, Srila Prabhupada, Dhananjaya Prabhu was with Srila Prabhupada, and Prabhupada just out of the blue, he said, "It's too late." So he was thinking like, well, Prabhupada said, "It's too late." So Dhananjaya Prabhu is asking, like trying to understand what Prabhupada meant. And Prabhupada said, "It's too late. Even if all the temples close, even if all the devotees leave, even if the Krishna consciousness movement for some reason shuts down, it's too late, because the books are out there. Someone will read the book and start the whole thing up again." That's an interesting point. Therefore, books, very important. I was also wondering why physical books, to distribute them, is so important. This is my conspiracy theory. One reason why printed books are so important. Now you may notice in the world everything is going electronic. Nowadays people are shifting over to electronic devices. They're even reading from electronic devices. But what people don't realize is that maybe this is also another conspiracy of Kali Yuga. Because once everything is electronic, things can be controlled by a central agency. So perhaps in the future, if the only access people have to information is electronic, and some powerful entity in the world decides to block and censor information, then they only have a limited amount of access. But when there are printed books, anyone, anywhere can access it. And therefore, maybe it's a master plan of the Acharyas to distribute printed books. Because printed books remain, printed books stay, and printed books, even if everything gets controlled, can't be controlled, because they can reach many, many places and remain accessible. So anyway, that's my little speculation for today of why printed books specifically are so important. So yes, Kali Yuga is moving on, and in this way the legs of religion are diminishing. Each leg of religion is very, very important. Again, in the first canto we hear about the 4 activities. There are 4 legs, and therefore there's 4 legs. Because when Kali Yuga was, when Kali was being attacked by Pariksha and about to be killed, then he surrendered. And when he surrendered, then Parikshit knew, if someone surrenders, I can't kill them. So Kali begged places to stay. And then it's described in the Bhagavatam. Abhyartidas tada tasmai stanani kalayedudo dyutam panam striya suna yatra adharmas chaturvidha. Chaturvidha, there are 3 types adharma. There are 3 types of places in which adharma reside. Dyutam, where there is gambling. Panam, where there is intoxication. Striya, where there is illicit sex. Suna, where there is meat eating, animal slaughter. So each one destroys one of the legs of religion. Dyutam, gambling destroys truthfulness. Intoxication destroys austerity. Illicit sex destroys cleanliness. And meat eating destroys compassion, mercy. Prabhupada was so amazing. He writes in his book, all the world wars that we see are occurring because of what? Why are world wars happening? Because of meat eating. That's an amazing statement, actually. See, the greatest individuals, the most evolved individuals who have the highest consciousness, they can see connection in chaos. They can understand something is happening here and the effect will happen here. People who are of very gross, very meager intelligence, they can't make connections. Something happens and there's an effect, but they can't see the connection. But the most evolved people in the creation, they can see connection. They see connection in chaos. While the whole world is wondering, why is there war? Why is there war? Why is there war? The acharyas give the reason. Because if you harm animals, if you're indiscriminate in the way you treat animals, if it doesn't pain you to see an animal killed, if you can't understand the suffering that an animal goes through when it's killed, if you're completely insensitive and apathetic to that, then it's only one more step to be insensitive and apathetic towards human beings. And therefore war happens. Because people's mercy, people's compassion is basically annihilated. So each of these 4 activities annihilate different legs of religion. And each one also has a positive effect. It doesn't just have a negative effect, but the lack of this quality definitely creates a negative effect, but the development of this quality creates a very, very positive effect. So austerity is very, very powerful, because what austerity does is it allows one to see life beyond the mind and senses. Most of the world, most of the people are only seeing life through the mind and senses, and therefore their experience is only limited to the physical and the emotional. The moment you start doing austerity, then what happens is you begin to quieten the mind and the senses. And because you are able to quieten the mind and the senses, then you make the spirit more available to access spiritual experience. And that's the positive reason why austerity is so powerful. One has to become a mastermind. If you've conquered the mind, Krishna says, Chitatmana prashantasya paramatma samahita. One who has conquered the mind. For one who has conquered the mind, the super soul is already reached. It's amazing to think that Krishna is in your heart. He's right there. Hey, Krishna. He's right there in your heart. And if you want to reach Krishna, if you want to connect Krishna, if you want Krishna to speak to you from within your heart, there's one qualification: you have to conquer your mind. Because right now the mind is so loud that we can't hear Krishna's voice. But the moment the mind is conquered, jita atmana, prashantasya, you become extremely peaceful. And in that clarity of consciousness, paramatma samahita, you can hear Krishna. So austerity is very powerful because it quietens the mind and senses. The world we're living in today, people's mind and senses are raging. That's why people can't handle silence, because it's too loud. In silence, what you begin to hear is the noise of the mind. And the noise of the mind is so loud that people can't deal with it. And therefore, people by all means avoid silence and solitude. And therefore, they always keep themselves engaged, bombarded, because the mind is so loud. Mercy is very, very important, because mercy represents sensitivity. If you want to have a relationship with anyone, you have to be sensitive. It means you have to be thinking about their needs, their interests, their concerns, how they're feeling. Then you can really have a relationship with someone. But in the world today, there's no sensitivity towards others, and therefore there's no real relationship. And not just other people, but there's no sensitivity to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And therefore we can't really have a relationship. So mercy is very, very powerful, because what the quality of mercy does is it makes you more sensitive to what other people are feeling, what other people are experiencing, what other people are going through in their heart. And when you're sensitive to that, then you can actually have a relationship with someone. And so if the ultimate aspiration of the soul is to experience love, then in order to experience love, you have to have relationship. And in order to have relationship, you have to have sensitivity. And how do we develop our sensitivity? Through mercy. And that's why mercy is so powerful. That's why going out, for example, on the street and distributing books is so powerful. Because what it does is it softens your heart. Because you become compassionate. You become more aware what people are going through, how difficult life is, and that softens the heart. Austerity, mercy, what was the other one? So my mind's gone blank. Cleanliness, yeah. So why is cleanliness so important? Cleanliness is so important. It doesn't just mean the hygiene of your clean clothes, clean body. Of course, it also means clean mind. There's another sense of cleanliness, which is to have a clean, an ordered and regulated life. Another way to see cleanliness is where there's order and regulation. You know, like say you're in a room and it might be clean, but if everything is all over the place, unordered, then to you it feels unclean. So another way to see cleanliness is cleanliness means order, regulation. And that's very powerful for spiritual life, because when one is able to live their life in a regulated way, then they open up the opportunity to access God. Like for example, Krishna says, Yukta ahara viharasya, yukta chestasya karmasu, yukta swapno vabodasya, yogo bhavati dukhaha. That when you're regulated in your habits of eating, sleeping, work, recreation, when you're regulated in your sadhana, your spiritual practice, when you live a clean life of order and regulation, then you're much more able to go beyond the body and access a spiritual reality. Therefore, cleanliness, very powerful. And then truthfulness, of course, we know. Truthfulness means not just to say the right thing and say the truthful, appropriate thing, but truthfulness means to see everything through the lens of Shastra. And thus the ultimate truthful person is the one who sees everything from the vision of the absolute truth. So like this, all these qualities are very, very powerful. And here we're learning in this first canto, 17th chapter, of how these qualities are being reduced. And so we begin to understand, if I want to live a powerful spiritual life, if I want to live a spiritual life in which I actually access Krishna, I actually experience the reality of Krishna, you can't do it unless these qualities are there. You can't enjoy and diminish your austerity and think you'll experience Krishna. You can't live in ignorance of the absolute truth and think you're going to experience Krishna. You can't be harmful and insensitive towards others and think you're going to experience Krishna. And you can't be unregulated and just random in everything you do and think you're going to experience Krishna. These four are very, very important in terms of actually accessing the spiritual reality. Hare Krishna. So let me stop there and see whether anyone may have any questions, comments. Yes, sorry, Ramananda.
In relation to gambling, I heard that speculation can be considered gambling. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah. Gambling, gambling has many, many aspects. And Harinamananda Prabhu is raising the point that sometimes speculation can be said to be gambling. Basically, we can say that speculation is gambling in the sense that what you're doing is basically you're gambling with your time. Prabhupada gives the example, if you want to know who your father is, then you can go and do like a whole try and experiment speculatively, and try and find out. And you'll basically end up wasting your time and come to no conclusion. But otherwise you could just go to the scriptures or go to your father, your mother, and then it would become very clear. So in the same way, Shastra is mother, Veda Mata, we say. The Vedas are the mother. And why are the Vedas the mother? Because the Vedas can reveal to you who is your father, who is Krishna, Aham Bija Pradapita. Therefore, we can say speculation is a type of gambling because you basically gamble away the most vital asset which you have, which is your own time. Ayusha kshana eko pi na labhya swarna koti bi nachen nirarthakam niti kacha hanischato dikha. Chanakya says, Ayusha kshana, one moment of time, na labhya, you can't get it back. Svarna koti bi, even if you have millions of gold coins. Therefore, nachen nirarthakam niti. What can be more, what could be worse than wasting time? Kacha hanis tatodika. There's no greater loss than losing your own time. And because when we speculate, we don't go to the authority, we just end up going round and round in circles. It's a type of gambling because you're giving away the most valuable thing without getting anything back. And that's basically what gamblers do. They give away all their wealth thinking they're going to get something back, and in the end they end up broke as a joke. And that's what speculation does. At the end of all your speculation, what did you get? There was one philosopher, he's speculating, he came up with all the different philosophies, went round and round and round, wrote so many books, and at the end of life, you know what he did? He drove to the top of a mountain and he drove his car off. Killed himself. Because he realized it's all useless. Well, he thought it was all useless. Speculation. You gamble away the most valuable thing you have, your own life energy with no conclusion. This is the world. Therefore, yes, speculation is gambling. I'll just say something else on gambling. I was sometimes realizing, why is gambling so bad spiritually? Like, how can we see it from... and then I realized that what gambling also does, money gambling and things like that, is the reason why it's so bad is because the mentality of gambling is minimum effort, maximum gain. And the devotional mentality is maximum endeavor, maximum service, no gain. And so what gambling does is it puts you diametrically opposed to the devotional mentality. And remember what Bhagavatam tells us, ahaituki apratihata yayatma suprasidati. If you want to experience real satisfaction of the soul, then you have to render service. But what does that service have to be? Completely unmotivated. But what gambling does is it puts you in the complete opposite mentality, where you're trying to do minimum effort and get maximum for yourself. And therefore it makes you miserable. It makes you miserable. So yeah, anyway, something else, just in case you were thinking of putting a little bet down. Yeah.
Thank you, Shamar. Could you comment on this term Kali Chela? I came across it from Bhaktivinoda Thakur, disciple of Kali, and the description's kind of like, basically pretending to be a devotee, wearing net beads, tilak, but not following the principles. But what distinguishes that term, which is quite like heavy, from a aspiring devotee who just wants to improve?
Yeah. So Kali Chela, this is a terminology of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, a disciple of Kali, one who presents themselves as a devotee, but who inside of themselves are actually having a very, very materialistic mentality. So how do we differentiate that from the Mishra Bhakta? The one who is a mixed devotee, the one who is practicing spiritual life but may not have full spiritual consciousness, full purity of heart. You see, a devotee may be weak, but a devotee is truthful. Bhaktisiddhanta, I was making this point yesterday, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says weakness is acceptable, but cheating is not acceptable. So a Kali Chela, a disciple of Kali, dresses as a devotee, but then consciously tries to mislead others and utilize their position of being a so-called devotee to actually create harm towards others, to actually divert others. Whereas someone who's a devotee who's just weak, they may also have some level of anartha or materialistic mentality, but the two important things are, number one, they're honest. They don't try to present themselves as something they're not. And the second thing is, they don't try to utilize their position in a devious way to cause harm towards others. So a Kali Chela is deviant and also lacks truthfulness of representing who they are. Whereas a devotee who's just weak doesn't try to misuse their position to cause harm, and they also have an honesty. And that's what separates us. So the moment we lose our honesty, and the moment we try to present ourselves as devotees to then create harm towards others, then we can understand maybe getting initiated as a Kali Chela. Does that make sense? So sometimes I tell people, fake it till you make it. That's true. But there are footnotes to that. Number one, don't fake it so much that you think you've made it. Number two, don't fake it just to convince others that you've made it. And number 3, don't fake it without a sincere desire to make it. If you follow those 3 things, then fake it to make it works, and you can't be considered a Kali Chela, even though your internal consciousness is not pure. Because you are sincerely trying to get there. Okay.
Maharaj, at the end of Kali Yuga, when everything is destroyed, what happens?
Kalki, there's a video out. Yes. So yeah.
What happens to these souls, like Kali Chela, for example? These yugas keep coming. I think there will be millions of Kali Yugas, Dwapara, Treta Yugas happening. So what happens to these souls? There's one school of thought that there will be moksha, where we aspire to go to the higher planets, what have you. But what happens to these souls who make these mistakes, and how does karma interplay with this? I mean, where is it recorded? Will Sanchita karma remain, and should we wait till the other Kali Yuga comes? Or how does it even work out? Because the souls who come into Satyuga are so pure is what we understand.
So what happens to all the souls in Kali Yuga, at the end of Kali Yuga, who clearly have a deviant mentality? So we could say a few things happen. The first thing is that the end of Kali Yuga gets so bad. Right? You can read it in the 12th canto. Anyway, you can read it if you want to. It's heavy. So it explains everything that happens at the end of Kali Yuga. You know, people will have children just so they can eat them. So it becomes such a hellish condition at the end of Kali Yuga that we can say almost Kali Yuga becomes like a hellish planet. And therefore the purification of the soul that's required for them to go into a more sane situation takes place through the suffering that happens at the end of Kali Yuga. So, you know, and then the ultimate suffering is then Kalki comes, right, and just like annihilates everyone. And the purification that comes from being annihilated by the Supreme Lord's incarnation also creates an opportunity for those souls to then go to another place. So one way we can say is that the errant souls of the end of Kali Yuga just get so purified by the suffering that happens at the end that they become qualified to then enter into Satya Yuga. Another way you can see it is that some souls may just go to another universe where Kali Yuga is going on, just to carry on the bad movie. Because somewhere Kali Yuga is going on in the universe. And then depending at the end of the day of Brahma or something like that, sometimes those souls just reside within the body of the Lord and then again come out at a suitable time and place. So ultimately, one way or the other, Krishna makes an arrangement for the souls to enter into the next phase of life, which will help them to rewire their consciousness and psychology. So it could be done in multiple ways. Hopefully we don't hang around to find out. Yes.
Maharaj, I had a question related to Bhagavatam. Why, when we read Bhagavatam, we go through so many stories where so many offenses have been made. I mean, the whole Bhagavatam is full of offenses. This person offended that, and so I got scared when I was reading it. I was like, it's all about offenses. So how should we see it, and why were so many offenses made in the past by Vaishnavas or sadhus or whoever?
Why were the offenses made?
Yeah, I mean, because they were practicing spirituality. So, I mean, why is it so many negative offenses being made, and how should we see it positively?
Thank you so much, yeah. So the Shastra is full of so many individuals who committed offenses, and sometimes we can feel like, oh my God, I'm walking on a minefield, make sure I don't offend anyone today. And how is it that these great souls could have made, or these eminent personalities could have made offenses like that? The first thing is the Shastra is instructive, and therefore Prabhupada often makes the point that Krishna teaches like the mother teaches the daughter-in-law through the daughter. And so what the Bhagavatam teaches us is that, yeah, even eminent personalities seem to make offense, but Krishna is teaching us through them. And what Krishna is showing is that our potentiality to be offensive is very, very great. The root of all offense is one thing, which I already mentioned today: insensitivity. When we're insensitive to how other people are feeling, how other people are perceiving our presence, then know for sure that we are going to commit offense. And so the scriptures are full of stories and descriptions of offenses that need to be avoided. There's dham aparad, there's nam aparad, there's seva aparad, there's vaishnav aparad, so many aparads. Why so many rules? Why so many things? Don't do this, don't do that, be careful, this, that. Because all of this is teaching us to be more sensitive. When you go on the altar, why are there so many rules? If you don't do this, there's a seva aparad. If you don't do this, there's a seva. Why are there so many rules? It's just to make us more present, more aware, more sensitive to how the Lord is feeling. And then eventually when you have pure spiritual consciousness, because you have so much sensitivity, you'll never create an offense. But right now, we're so insensitive that sometimes we create offenses and we have no idea. We have no idea that we're offending someone. So the scriptures, what they do is because they want to allow us to enter into a relationship of love. Remember, relationship requires sensitivity. And therefore, so many descriptions of offenses and the potentiality of the harm of those offenses is given to help us be more conscious about everyone and everything around us. Prabhupada often said, first become conscious and then become Krishna conscious. So knowing the potentiality of offense makes us very conscious. It makes us very attentive and sensitive. And then we can enter into a deeper relationship of love. That's why aparad is such a big topic in Shastra. Okay, maybe last question.
Continuing on the Kali Chela theme, Bhaktivinoda Thakur writes a bhajan, Kali Kukura Kadan, where he talks about Dushtamata Shatan or Vihati, like even if the devotion is pretentious, it's cheating ways, it's Chala Bhakti, it's a cheating devotion, everything can be purified by the causeless mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So, like, how do we see this?
Everyone is a cheater to a greater or lesser extent. Because if we present ourselves as something we're not, then we're cheating. One person, he wanted to understand whether Prabhupada was actually the real thing. He was convinced all gurus have some weakness. So he decided to become Prabhupada's driver, and he was with Prabhupada morning to evening, traveled around with him, drove him around, observed him, watching, when is he going to make a fault. And after 1 week he came back and he said, this person is definitely a sadhu. I said, why? And his answer was interesting. He said, because I observed him morning to evening and he was never trying to impress anyone. Just who I am. No cheating. What you see is what you get. So all of us are cheaters to a greater or lesser extent, but devotees also have sincerity within them. Yes, we cheat, but yes, we're also sincere. And so what Krishna does is he sees the sincerity, he fans the spark, and he accepts whatever good there is. Like in any devotional activity, there's an action and there's an intention. So if you look in Shastra, what Krishna always does is he looks for the good. Can you think of someone who gave a devotionally seeming nice action but had a very bad intention? Putana. Nice action. Feed Krishna milk. Intention. Kill him. And what did Krishna do? Gave her the position of a maidservant. Can you think of someone who had a very good intention, but the way they expressed it was seemingly a bad action? Shabri, the one I was thinking was Vidura's wife. Very good intention. Krishna has come to my home. Let me feed him. Let me feed him. Peel the banana. Give Krishna a banana skin. Oh, Krishna, give Krishna. Imagine you'd gone to the altar full of banana skins. This is your offering. But Krishna was very pleased. So sometimes the intention is bad, but then Krishna sees, but no, there's a good action. Sometimes the action is bad, but Krishna sees, no, there's a good intention. Krishna always tries to find some good, and then he uses that good to then give the devotee mercy, and then that mercy helps to pervade that devotee's heart and then push out all the other bad things. So Krishna is kind. So yeah, even if we are cheaters, Rupa Goswami goes in front of Krishna and says, Matsamo nasti papatma naparadi cha kaschana parihare pilajjame kim bruve purushottama yuvatinam yatha yuni yunam cha yavato yatha manobhiramate tadvan manome ramatam tvai. Rupa Goswami goes in front of Krishna, he says, Matsamo, you'll never find anyone like me. Papatma, who is so sinful. Naparadi chakaschana, you'll never find anyone like me who is so offensive. Parihare pilajjame krimbuve purushottama. But Krishna, you're so kind, you're the supreme person. Give me your mercy. Yuvatinam yathayuni, Krishna, change my heart, change my mind, so that just as young boys are always thinking of young girls, yunam cha yavato yatha, and just as young boys are always thinking of girls, manobhiramate tadvan, allow my mind to be as naturally attracted towards you. Manome ramatam tvai, allow my mind to be situated in you and always take pleasure in you. So that's our position. Aparada sahasrani kriyante harnisham maya dashoham iti mammatva kshamashva madhusudana. From the rising and setting of the sun, Krishna, I have so many offenses. But kshamashva madhusudana, forgive me, see the good and transform me. That is the prayer of the devotee. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Bhagavatam ki jai.